I'm gonna start and move through this and try to give some stuff so we can get to the meat of this today and talk about our subject at hand as we've kind of moved through these. We've tried to take you to the different places, and we've come through to this point. We're going to hit a quick review in a minute, but we've come through and hit handling activities with people and events. And so today our big thing is media. And to give you a little bit of background, specifically in this subject, Spence?
Yes.
You're going to have to hit mute or do something with the typing. We've got pretty heavy typing going in the background. So we may have to go to the... through a couple of events, I spent quite a bit of time with Joel Roberts. It was 2 years ago in December that I went back and spent a week with Joel Roberts, and I've put a little bit up here who Joel Roberts is. Joel was probably the premier radio talk show host in the country. He was the primetime, drive time radio talk show host in the LA market on the biggest radio station in the market, and that's the biggest radio market in the country. And so he hosted this talk show, and Joel now coaches people on media and PR and dealing with a lot of fun things. Has been a coach to me that I've been to several events with Joel and spent a bunch of time studying under his tutelage and learning from Joel. And so an interesting story that Joel teaches is about getting to an audience and doing what he refers to as broadening the demographic or narrowing the demographic of your subject matter. And so the example that he puts out really well, and I thought about just trying to play it today, but it was just a little too long and a little odd to get on here, so I'm going to do my best job of giving you a short version of relating it. But he had some folks that wanted to come on his radio talk show that had a little learning program for people. That was really a reading program to teach people for reading, and they had he sat and looked at that, and the problem is that his audience, certainly there are people that are in the market that listen to the radio.
Brent?
Yes.
Yeah, just if I remember right, that was a kind of a literacy program to help people to read and become more literate.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. And so he had people that were struggling with literacy and that didn't read in his radio audience, but their research showed that it was less than 2% of his audience base. And when you're dealing with tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people that are on that every day, that can be quite a bit and puts those people on. But if he just put this program essentially on literacy, and he put this program on the radio, he would lose his whole audience. You just wouldn't keep them. Until you sit down and look at how can I reach this audience and how can I make it relevant to them? How can I make this subject matter and get them interested? And so he did a little research and came back and found that although about 10% of the marketplace was illiterate, and so of the broader LA marketplace, we have about 10% of the people that are illiterate. 50% of the people in prison, and I forget the percentage, but a very high percentage of people on welfare were illiterate. That was a huge part of those markets, and that the cost of that to the to society, to the taxpayer, was very substantial, and he established and substantiated what it cost the average taxpayer and average person for all of these people and for that illiteracy, and drove and ended up in the end putting on just a killer radio show that they maintained a very high audience base by refining and spreading out that market and the message on reading and illiteracy and dealing with that. So what I thought that it would demonstrate and help us anchor here a little bit as we begin was just the value of kind of understanding, and media is about understanding our audience and understanding how to get to our audience and what it is, and that just throwing our message out there sometimes, if we can't get the audience and get to them right and present what we've taught you. Joel is who taught me to focus on the problem and to do what I've shared with virtually everybody here, is to get your message just totally focused on what the problem that people are going to have. And that comes from Joel. It's before you start a radio show, but in any marketing situation, it's you create the problem and find out what the problem, and from the example I just gave you, you can kind of see how that goes on. So what we want to do is get you anchored a little bit here. You may have to change the size of your screen if you haven't done this on WebEx before. If you're not seeing everything that's on the screen in the bottom left-hand corner, you can change the size of your screen with either the percentage button or the plus or minus. So when I popped that on my screen, it wasn't quite fitting. But I move through this really quick because we've been through this dozens of times, but the main purpose is to make sure we're anchored on where we are today. So we've got the target model here. We know that what we're going to focus on is a particular client group, and this is so true with media. It's one of the things we're going to hit in a minute that is one of the big mistakes that takes place. And that our objective is to create substantial distinction, and we're going to do that by solving a problem that our competitors don't. If we solve the same problem, my friend Keith Cunningham says, if you solve the same problem as your competitors, one of you isn't needed. And so ultimately, when we're clear on who the target group is and the problems that we're going to solve for that target group, we're going to establish our brand and build our brand, and that's a huge part of what media is all about. And our brand is our reputation, and it really is your reputation about that distinction, those things that you solve for the market that you're building. And we're going to hit today, and I'm going to give you several things that you can wrap around. I've got a slide for you to think about. If you haven't nailed that down, you want to be sending with media the same message over and over and over to your target market. That the value of media is it allows you to repeat that, and we're going to get that in the slide here in a second. But we want to tout and put that reputation out there in every way we can. So that hits the stage that we're at, is we call that awareness or messaging. But the problem that most people have is they start trying to send a message to the marketplace and make them aware of them as a company, if you use those two words. And since they're not clear on who the target is and what problems they solve that market, and therefore what reputation they want, they just send a bunch of random messages, and they change it every time they send it out there, and then they wonder, and they think branding is putting their logo out there, and they wonder why nobody is really aware of who they are and what they do and what they represent in the marketplace. So that's one of the things we definitely want to cure with our media. And so we've divided into those four main categories that we've got. One of the ways that we send that message out to the market is through activities. One of the ways that we do that is through events. Another way is through the media, and finally with promotional tools. And if we can get all of these that are sending the same message and pushing up through the target the same way, we will build incredible synergy, and we'll get a market very clear on who we are and very clear what our difference is and what our reputation is and why they should use us. And so a couple other distinctions that we've made for you is that really activity events are about building relationships. And media and promotional tools are more communication. They're better, the activities are better at personal relationships. When we want, and I know I didn't understand if Lori was leading here or going to be, but we had Lori Cono. She's built a ton of great relationships, property managers. And you're not going to do that with media, as an example. And that's just not going to, and you're not going to drop some promotional tool off and have that happen. You need relationships. That's done with activities, meeting people, taking them to lunch, doing those types of things. Urgency is built with events. We struggle today with getting everybody on, but there was a date and a time and a place, and that urgency. The most common event that I've put out there dozens of times for most businesses is a sale, and they create incredible urgency. With our events, we can have dates, and we're going to actually bring events into our media, because some of the greatest ways to get PR and media today, some free PR, is through the use of events. Media's best benefit to us, the biggest thing that it can do is repeat our message. When we need a message repeated in the marketplace over and over and over, media is the best place to do that. We can't have enough activities with people. We can't have enough events with people to really get a message repeated over and over. And when we're going after a broad market, that's typically the best way. And finally, the promotional tools, which will be the next meeting, are meant to anchor our message, meant to create a way for people to remember our message and to be anchored back to us, and be able to obviously get back in touch with us. And so we'll talk about that next time. So today we're going to talk about media. We're talking about the repetition that puts us in where we are, and let's get right into it. One of the huge things that I think everybody's aware is that there is a huge changing environment in media. If you haven't read the little book, Who Moved My Cheese, it's a great little hour or two read. It's quite a short book, and you ought to read it. But it sends a message that we're looking at here, and that's the way to market today and the way to get to our audiences today are not the same as they were even 5 years ago, 6 years ago. 10 years ago, the Yellow Pages worked great for a lot of our audience, and it was a major way people would find disaster repair contractors. And today, in most markets, the Yellow Pages has virtually disappeared. It is only a very small piece of the marketplace that we're addressing. Even in markets, I would think that it would still work. And I'll bring that back up when we talk about some of what we're targeting and dealing with. So one of the huge things for us to recognize is that media itself has changed. And it changed in a number of ways. You've got the example like I just gave with the Yellow Pages, and that's changed this, just that people aren't using it as much. But we've got all these other types of media, including things like Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, the social media that's out there, and we've got all of the types of, let's say, pay-per-click and SEO stuff that's done on the internet. We've also got a ton of what I'm going to include in what we're defining today as media that are medias that are controlled by other people. They may be allied, we can ally with. They may be associations. They may be I've kind of got a list in a minute, so it's probably easier to go through and deal with some of the stuff that way. But I wanted the main purpose here is that I want you to see that one of the problems we have is that we have a very narrow look at what media is. When we talk about it, we think about video and TV and newspaper or something like that. And today, what media is a lot broader range. And in the broadest sense, I want you to think about media in this vein, that media is somebody, a group, an individual or an organization that has a database and contact with people that I want to have in a database and contact with. And so in the past, that's been this magazine has contact with a demographic or a group that I want contact with. The newspaper has contact with people I want. The yellow pages have contact with this I want to have contact with. And today, there are a lot more sources of people, places that have contact with critical groups that you want to have contact with. And we're going to use media methods to reach them and to touch those. One of the things that we run into with media is huge missed opportunities. And one of the things we want to put to bed today is one of the biggest things about missed opportunities, specifically what I'd put here as PR, is that we miss these opportunities because we look at PR and marketing opportunities in a very promotional, advertising, get out and sell ourselves sense. And most PR opportunities, if that's the way you approach them, most of the time they will just blow you off. They don't want to have anything to do with you. If somebody was desperate for something and you wrote a little article for them that was very self-promotional and stuff, they'd probably never run it again. They'd never call you again. Where if you can take that opportunity, we'll talk about a couple ways here to spin those things. I'll talk about a magazine article that I'm working on now and how we can spin that. Spence, your job, forget to weave that in. I've got it in a later thing just to remind me to hit the magazine article. But we want to take and not miss those opportunities. Other thing that I see huge and a problem that people have with media is that they get focused and they get an idea who they are in the marketplace and what's going on. But then it comes time to run an ad. Let's say it is a yellow page ad. They're going to run something on the internet or deal with it, and they just totally abandon everything we just talked about in the target diagram. We send a completely different message to the marketplace, and it doesn't promote our image and our message. And if you're in a position to run advertisement, some that are, for example, carpet cleaners or do vent cleaning or other types of things, you may run promotional ads. And there are ways to weave your messaging into those ads, and you'll see most people do. It's how you gain that distinction in the place over time and separate yourself from the competitors. And so we don't want to abandon who we are to run an advertisement. Advertisement is one form or one tool used in marketing, and it should support everything else that we do. So one of the things that I want to take you to, and this is a little thing that you may want to pull out a pencil. It isn't a ton to write down, but I've just got pictures representing this, and I hope it's one of the little takeaways you take away from this today. But we try to take people to think about who your best customer is. And then on the target diagram, the purpose of the target diagram is to help us get focused, that center of that thing. Our target is our focus, and there's no reason to be going after every agent in the market. If there are 20 agents, it would be the best agents. Let's let everybody else go after the hundreds of agents that are a waste of time, and let's go get the 20 agents that are the best agents. And that target diagram is meant to take us down that path. If we are going after property managers, let's not go after every property manager in the market. Let's go after the 5 biggest, or the 5 closest to the shop, or the 5 that would be the best, or the 20 or the 30, and it depends on what you're looking at. But that target is meant to help us get the focus so that we can figure out who the best are, what are the problems they have that we can solve, how do we build that reputation in the marketplace, and then we'll build it out from those biggest to the others. Let's not go take a bunch of people to lunch or do a bunch of things, send a bunch of advertisements to people who are worth our time. So the most likely customer, disaster repair contractors. Let's talk about the end customer. I'm leaving our referral thing and say about who hires disaster repair contractors. Who is it when you're to the general market? And one of your targets can and oftentimes should be direct consumer. If one of your targets that you have is, let's say I've got a target for property managers, and I've got a target for home inspectors, and then I've got a target for direct consumer. If nothing more than just for the follow-up on my current clients. If I'm going to the direct consumer, and that's my target, who is my best clients? Who are they? And here's my answer to this, is studying, looking at the restoration industry for years, watching what people do, retired people, what's the word we used yesterday, Spence? I kept wanting to call them elderly. But retired, professionals, and women. And I can tell you, I challenge anybody to come back to me, by and large, the most frequent people that hire my company and virtually anyone I see out in the market, they are retired, they are professionals, or they are women. And in all three cases, they don't want to deal with this problem. When I was sitting on a job yesterday, last evening, with a young couple. And they had a bunch of wind damage a month ago, and we worked up a bunch of things for them. They need substantial repairs to a garage that were pre-existing, and for them to come up with, in this case, they needed $5,000, and there is no way that's happening. That is not going to happen. They want to do a bunch of the work on the disaster stuff themselves. And that's my experience with that type of a client over and over and over. When you push people outside this demographic that I just gave you, it's not that you'll never get a customer in that vein. They aren't your most likely customers. They're the ones that want to have all the neighbors and friends and do it themselves and all of that. But when I would put this demographic all under the we're too busy or we don't understand the work profile. So the importance of this is that when I'm going out into the media and I'm going out in the general marketplace, if I understand who best customers are, I can tailor my message to who they are. If I'm going to write an article for the Sunday newspaper, and if any of you haven't done this, if the Sunday paper in your market or the community papers in your market, in either case, are dying for relevant stuff to send to people. I'm talking about on the Sunday paper in like the home section. There's a home section on the Sunday paper, and there is somebody tagged with writing an article every single week. I was on the Remodelers Council of the Home Builders Association, and they begged us to provide articles to them from the Remodeling Council because they just couldn't come up with stuff. There are people like that are begging for this stuff. If you will provide them some good information, you will easily get published in those papers. But you've got to be clear on who your target is. What is it you're trying to come out of in the end with this? And your message should be tailored and targeted to your audience there. So that's unlike the target diagram. I want to get you focused on who the best and most likely customers are as we go through this. Now, I've divided media down into two trains of thought to just give a little perspective and thought on this. One is just to look at media in three big categories that we can divide it down. And so one is mass media. These forms, like I just gave, like the radio talk shows or radio advertising and newspaper and TV and the big mass media stuff. Then we've got the social media that's just come out of the woodwork in the last 5 years, really. And but we've got all kinds of social media that's out there, and we've got finally public relations. And today, as we talk about public relations, because it's where we're going to move, we can spend entire days and courses on each one of these individually. And knowing that we had to kind of get some groundwork and set up this course today, and that we don't have a ton of time, we thought we'd put just a little bit of focus on the end here on dealing with some of the free public relations sources of work and how to nurture that, because most of the mass media, you need to do a little study and work on the specific, you know, if I'm going to advertise on the radio, there's some specific things to understand and do there, and I could get Joel Roberts and we could spend days talking about radio talk shows. He's kind of a specialist and coaches people on going on talk shows at this point, both TV and radio. But we could spend days talking about that. And on social media, we can spend days and days and days. And there's some other stuff we'll probably be bringing you in the social media realm. But we're going to focus public relations today on that. Another way of looking at this is into the types of media. And some types of media we're dealing with is to put advertising out there. You know, if you go in the little door-to-door mailer coupons, the coupon mailer advertising, we've got advertising in magazines. We just wrote a magazine ad this last week for the magazine for the Community Association, which is the Association of Property Managers for Homeowners Association. So you've got advertising and things that you deal with like that. We've got distinction between advertising and marketing that I'm going to try to make. I really told you earlier that advertising is one function or a piece of marketing, but marketing is getting that target message out and putting that out, where advertising is to promote and make a sale now. Advertising, so as a carpet cleaner, if I'm sending out ads trying to get people to hire and get me to book carpet cleaning right now, and I send out a special offer, that's advertising. Marketing is the logo on my truck and the information that I'm doing, trying to send my message out to the marketplace in that way. And finally, we've got on the bottom of this one, just like that, is this PR thing. And I started down this, and I think I digressed off it, but we're spreading PR from, you know, the other type of PR that's out there, which is to save face for corporations that have had a problem or something like that. And we're really talking about promotional, informational public relations and putting it out in that site. So let's go down this PR path here for a minute and talk about some strategies on public relations and what are some things. We'll take a few minutes here. I'll cover you know, some subjects and thoughts and some things on how we can go out and get PR and use PR and what to do with it. So I think I'm going to bring this story that I implied earlier in here. The first thing that you have to recognize, that I've already pointed out with public relations and any type of PR you get, is PR is not an invitation for free advertising. And I even see PR marketed as free advertising. You know, that we're come to this course and we're going to teach you how to get all this free advertising. And if you take and do and promote your business and try to use PR as methods, you'll find that, number one, you're probably just wasting time. Nobody will want to give you the time of day or deal with it. But if you recognize PR as an opportunity to be able to serve a particular market, to be able to provide typically information, but to serve a particular market, you will find all kinds of things. So I'll give you an example on how this whole thing can come together, and it doesn't have to be solicited. I sat in a preparation meeting with the Community Association a few weeks ago, and every year in January have a meeting to go over things that are being worked on in our state's legislature to get passed to update and change laws and rules and stuff about homeowners associations and property and property management. And so I walked up to the real person in charge of the whole thing afterwards and talked to him and said, you know, I think what we're doing over here in this law, and I referred to a couple of things, is really great. What you're working on, the licensing thing, that is super. I'm working on another committee. There's some substantial problems with the way asbestos is dealt with in our state, and I'm on a committee helping them draft some rules, but it has some big effects on HOAs and how they run and what they have to do on jobs, specifically disaster, but also time that people are remodeling these units. And I think we need to update that. And so he immediately turned to me and said, well, Brent, you know, in the magazine, I've got all of the articles through July, but will you write an article on asbestos and update everybody on how these asbestos rules and laws and what takes place with all of that? And so, of course, I told him, yes, I would do that. Now, I want you to think about this for a minute, because there are three paths I could go down. One path would be a self-promotional path that you know, here we are, and there are these asbestos rules, and we're the only company that knows about this because we're sitting on the boiling with all this, and you really get into all the promotion, which is a huge temptation, and you could be diplomatic about it, but if I read an article like that, if you read an article like that, most of us get pretty irked. That's not what we're reading the article for. The other option would be for me to just write an informative article, and this would probably be the path that many people would go down, and it would be an acceptable path. All I do is write all of the related information about asbestos and how it affects homeowners associations, and how it affects homeowners and homeowners associations, and what property management companies can do about that, and so forth. And here's what the legislation is, and here's what the rules are, and here's what you should do. Just write an informative article, and that would certainly work. But I can also weave our message, and our message is that we help with prevention, and our message is that prevention is a critical part of managing a homeowners association. And so, you know, our message is all about prevention and understanding, dealing with it. So I can easily write an article about the issues here with asbestos, how they can be managed with a prevention plan and addressed with a prevention plan, and how it can be better off, and that this is part of an overall prevention plan. And if you'd like any more information, free information on a prevention plan, then you ought to be in touch with Brent or Class 1 on the prevention information. And I hope you can see how what I'm suggesting to you is, if you're clear about your target and you're clear about who your target audience, in our case, this is going out, we're clear, the property management companies are our target on this. We run an advertisement in this magazine, and we got very clear on who reads this magazine, and called some critical allies and asked about the demographic of who was reading this, and should what we should target, who we should target that to. And we came out, this happened earlier this month, that this magazine's big target and big audience are property management companies, and that's who that's targeted to. Well, that's who we target the promotion to, and that's who we promote our message to. And I would weave our message into that other. It would be all help. It wouldn't be a sales job of selling the company. We'd have that woven in there. But provide value. I would always try to provide some resources. Another way to do that and weave your things in, or provide some resources that they can contact you and obtain. And that's, I'm going to give you another example of that in a minute. One of the other big examples, and I told you we'd weave events back into this, But one of the other big examples, we pushed this out last week, or not last week, but in the last meeting, the last webinar was to hold a community event. And the event that I'm suggesting is that most communities are really dying for these events to collect hazardous materials from homes. And they weave, if your message and your central focus is similar to ours in a prevention and safety standpoint, it is really easy to weave your message into that. And if you hold an event, now this event could be as small as holding it for an individual homeowners association, for example. I don't have to go to the whole community. I could just have an event like this for a homeowners association. I could also do it for a small community. I could also do it for a big city. And so depending on your abilities and your confidence, you might want to start small with something and look up bigger. If there's a particular community you like to serve in and has a lot of people kind of demographic like we talked about earlier, you could just go do one community event. But you set up this event, it puts you working with the fire department, the police department, and the mayor, and it's a way to promote to every professional in that community that you want to promote to. If I'm promoting that event, I'm promoting it to the agents that are my target in there, and I'm having them help me promote this event. There are property managers in there if I'm dealing with property managers, or you know, if there's retail places or whatever. If my target's in there, I'm going to hit harder than just the general community. I'm going to use that. But you can get PR, and you can get all kinds of things. You can have, if I'm doing this in a bigger basis, I can have, well, let's say if I'm doing it on a community basis, let's say I did it, let's go through my level. If I just did a homeowners association, it's going to go out in their newsletter. It can go out on every door. I can quite easily pass out some other stuff, so I can get a magnet, for example, to people, but I can do that. If I'm in a small community, most communities have some type of a newspaper and other types of things. Some of the smaller communities I deal with, one in particular, has an own little kind of community radio station, and just hits that market. But you've got those types of things, and then in the bigger market, you can get radio, TV, and other types of advertising. If the event that you're putting on and the thing that you're doing is worthy of that kind of PR, you will get that kind of PR. And if it's not worthy of that kind of PR, trying to get a radio station to run an ad for you, run a PR message for you of something that's not worthy of the PR, they get that all the time. They get hammered on that all the time. But you give them something that's worth it, you'll have that, and you can get that PR and have the opportunity to promote your company in that as the sponsor. Another great way to get, and this is probably one of the biggest that virtually everybody do, but another great way to get PR is strategic alliances. And I just want to broaden your thought a little bit on what these strategic alliances are. So we've talked a little bit about strategic alliances really briefly. We talked about for doing like continuing education classes on the events side of things. But on this side of things, I want you to think about the media I talked about earlier. And I want to change your perspective a little bit on what marketing is. I probably should have done this on 2 or 3 slides before. But, I want you to think about what marketing is. In the end, any of this type of marketing and advertising is basically a database issue. If I'm advertising in a magazine, I'm advertising to the database of people that magazine has subscriptions from. If I'm advertising on TV, I'm advertising to the database. The demographic is going to be, but the people that TV station, that particular TV show has an audience for, an interest in. And that in the past we've looked at those, and they always run these numbers, and we have these many viewers and this many readers and this many that and that, and really what we were doing is getting access to a database. The same thing is true with strategic alliances. So I was sitting at a Remodelers Council event and have an architect that markets, and he and I started chatting, and he tells me about a newsletter that he sends to, I think it was 3,800 people, and that these are all past clients and people that want information from him because of his expertise of being an architect. And so I asked him a little bit about it and found that he emails this out every month, and what kind of issues does he cover, and he told me a little bit, and I told him a little bit about my toolbox and the prevention videos, and he turned to me unsolicited and said, I would love to send a couple of those out to my clients. I would, and I said, done deal. We can send you some links and set that up, and you can send a video out to your clients and show them the water heater video, and show them we sat and talked about several of them, the carbon monoxide video and a couple of those, and love to do that. So all of a sudden, with the email, I have access to his database, and that is not any different. He's got an audience of 3,800 people in my marketplace that are primarily in that other demographic we talked about. They're primarily professionals and retired, and people that are dealing with this architect are not, I was going to say something derogatory, but they're outside of that demographic. So let's leave it there. And there's a key strategic alliance that we can form, and we provide something of value to him and to his audience, and he provides something of huge value to us, and that's exposure to his audience. So my purpose here is to have you broaden a little bit your view of what media even is, and media is access to databases. Even social media today, what you're doing is, if I like you on Facebook and like your company, you're essentially giving me access to your database, and that's a whole other discussion. Spence and I have a little webinar that we could probably get in the hands of some of you if that's something you want to pursue. But what I just said is quite literally true. That your objective on Facebook, and there's some tricks to do it, is to go a bunch of people to like you. And when they like you, there's ways of then promoting and putting yourself in front of everybody that likes you and everybody that's checking their page. And so I'm getting access to that database. Now there's one other side to this, and that is that we buy and ally and do other things to get accesses to these databases. But in the end, virtually all marketing is a process of managing your database and managing what you do. And I just spent a small fortune over a couple of months because our database has become a little bit of a mess with different people putting things different ways into the database, and so the nomenclature and names and what's capitalized and what's not was all changed, and having somebody go through and make it all the same and create a database. One of the most important that you're usually trying to do on any of this type of marketing side, if I'm not doing an advertisement that's promotional, but I'm trying to get people to respond to an ad, then I'm trying to build my database, and I'm either building it because I'm going to consistently use this other database I've acquired access to. I'm going to continue to run an ad in a magazine, for example, or continue to provide videos to this architect, so I continue to have access to the database, or I'm trying to get them onto my database. I'm trying to get them onto a database because you control a database too. And Terry here has done a great job. We've gone from a database of probably 250 insurance agents to a database of over 600 in a couple of months. And we have run a couple of just huge CE classes that people have been knocking our door down on, and that's what's built that database. And then we just pick and choose from that. We quite literally, at the end of a class, say, these people are outside of what we want. Just mail them their certificates. We don't even want to talk to them. And these people are keep on the list. And these 2 people, go visit them. Let's go talk to them and see what we can do. And we're able to whittle through that database. And that's a little bit of a digression. But that helps you and gives you a little bit. There are a lot of strategic alliances you can do. Think about a strategic alliance. What do I need to do? That this person has a database. I would love to be in touch with their people. This would be a great database to be in touch. What do I need to do? How can I ally? What value can I bring to them to be allied with that database? So I want to throw out a few ideas to you here on almost any type of PR. You've got to be respected as an expert in that area. And so this is just meant to be a list to think about some of those things that you have or develop expertise in. Let me first throw out an example. We decided last year, a year ago now, our marketing plan last year read like this. We're going to continue with the agent program. We're going to look at kicking off a property management program in September. We'll make a decision of whether we're at the point to move ahead or not. But we had joined the community association and done several things to be involved. I attended the legislative update last year in January, began to work with a lot of the people in the industry, and found out in January that there was going to be a huge, substantial, complete change in the way insurance laws for homeowners associations would work. And by our legislature meets in February and March, and by the end of March, that legislation passed, and the legislation kicked off in July. And so I'm watching this all take place, and I'm going meeting with people I know, and I talk to a couple of people, and I talk to a couple of insurance companies, and I start getting the sense in the market everybody is really confused about what is going on with this law. So I then make a couple phone calls and pull a couple strings, and I go meet with a couple of insurance agents, one that a couple of attorneys, one that represents a major insurance carrier that I deal with a lot, and I go have a nice meeting with him, get his take on it, what's going on. And then I meet with one for a property manager, and then I happen to meet with mine that does some for homeowners associations, and I get that. And so then I meet with a couple of the most powerful agents in the market, and they hook me up with a couple more attorneys, and before long I was the expert. I had talked to 6 different attorneys, talked to dozens of property managers, I had talked to everybody in the marketplace, and I was the expert. I knew more and to more people than anyone else. And all of a sudden in July we had a problem because we hadn't even looked at doing something until September. And in July, we decided we better put out a class. Let's contact the state. There's a huge problem here. Agents have no clue what's going on, and the law's already kicked into place and begun, and they've got to rewrite the way policies are written in our market. By the 1st of August, we had that approved and put that out in the market. And by the middle of September, we had put over 450 agents through the class to come up with it. We whittled out half a dozen key agents that we wanted out of that process, and then by we just taught another class with about 50 people in it a week and a half ago, and we're up to about 600, as I mentioned a minute ago. But I became the expert, and it didn't take years. It took a vision of seeing something that was affecting this target market that we're after, and a huge thing, and something that we can train. So here's some of the things that to look at. If your target market is really interested in green, there are some huge ways with restoration to become the expert on dealing with green. And there are all kinds of things you can do. I don't have time to break into these heavy. Prevention, you know, that's path that I've gone down, and we hammer that a lot out there. Insurance law, I just gave you an example that became the leader on insurance law. I'm blown away with how many people are in this industry and they do not understand the insurance policies that we work with. If that is something that needs to be understood, and the majority of your competitors don't, why don't you be the expert on that? Obviously, disaster. I think this is kind of a given and assumed and out there. Maintaining a home's value. It's one of the biggest things that's left on the table out in the marketplace. That with examples like mold, that the real issue, the big issue, the long-term issue from people, if we get over the health-related things, is reestablishing a home's value, and there's a bunch that can be done with that. That's of great interest to consumers, and it's a great interest to realtors, and that's a great basis as an expert for articles in the newspaper example that I gave you. Disaster preparedness and planning, and obviously that marries right up with the other side on prevention. But I'm meaning this more. There are a lot of people that preach and teach for the commercial marketing to do the disaster preparedness plans. And to be frank, I'm appalled, because the majority of them think they can go get a piece of paper, a Word document that has a plan, and go out and provide something of sincere value to somebody. And it's got as much value as it does the knowledge and effort that they put into it. They are not an expert at it. It is nothing that they have studied or done or dealt with. And provide a garbage document, and somebody kind of looks at them and thank you very much and throws it in the garbage. But if you truly are an expert at this, there are many opportunities for free PR, and there are simple ways. Every community in the country either has the CERT program put out by FEMA, I believe that's CERT, or has their equivalent that they replace the FEMA program with. That there is typically free education, and the communities will list all of the people that have that program. And so that's an example. I'm trying to keep myself from breaking into each one of these and giving you the things to do. But my point is, Disaster Recovery Journal is a magazine that specializes in this. And if that's who you are and the expertise you're going to have, get the expertise and then go promote it in the marketplace. Energy conservation is a huge one. I read an article last night that Obama has targeted. I have the article sitting behind me. Let me see if I can read it. It was huge. Billions of dollars, targeted billions of dollars into a federal program to update the energy management of every federal building and provide money for all kinds of other structures. And I'm having a hard time pulling the article in here. If somebody wants that, I'll provide it to you if that's an interest, because it's an allied related thing. Building issues, I gave you an example of the asbestos. Mold and lead are huge in the market. Some markets, radon is a big deal, but those are other issues that you can have expertise in, and that you're able to share with the marketplace. So another that we're called on a lot, I have some staff and myself that work very heavy with building code and construction defects and stuff. And there are many opportunities. We use this with insurance adjusters, some, to help keep them up to date on building code and related issues. And I've had unsolicited free PR. I'll give you an example. I had the Claims Managers Association on market. That is different than the Claims Adjusters or the Blue Goose that many of you may have in your market. This is the managers of the claims departments. So I had the guy that's in charge of that call me up. This is about a couple years ago. Call me up and say, "Hey, Brent, it's a claims manager's lunch today." I'm going to throw one little other anecdote, side note to this. no vendors can be a member of this, and nobody but the managers of the meeting except for a speaker. And so you have no competitors there. You have an open forum and everything else. So they called up and said, our speaker had to cancel on us suddenly today. Could you come over in an hour and teach us about the asbestos rules in the state of Utah? And so I went over there in an hour and I did a presentation for them. Now, obviously, that's something some of you may not be comfortable with. I was very comfortable with, and I knew the rules, and we had a great meeting. What that's turned into for me is they only have 6 speakers a year. This is every claims manager in the market, and I have a once-a-year meeting that I am in charge and am able to go be the expert and present. I do a legislative update thing now on laws that are affecting claims and property, and that's because they respect the expertise that I have there. So there are some issues. I think all of that speaks to this slide, and man, this date suspense. these are old, but you know, you have to be aware of what's going on in the marketplace. These examples that I've given you today and the things that I just gave you are you know, you've got to see what's going on in the marketplace. It was my recognition of what was happening with that with the property management and the laws that put that together. And in that case, I'm going to take it back what I just said a minute ago. It was not that Brent has some special abilities. It really was not. It is not that I put on some unbelievable class. I've developed some skills and abilities to deal with some things to the point that I'm comfortable with that. But that's not what made that happen. What made that happen is that I took a sincere interest and truly made myself the expert on that, and went after and then shared it with the people that were interested. And in that case, I recognized that there would be a lot of people interested in that, and there are, and they continue to follow up with this and want more information on that. So be aware of what's going on in your marketplace. And you know, this is one of the things that we take all of this back to, is that in the end, marketing is a function of tying your activities and events and media to a calendar. And the better you are at putting those down, if we don't get them on the calendar, they don't happen. And so get those things and look at the big issues, and then as you get down to your months, look at the things on your monthly basis that you can do, get them on the calendar, and those are the things that will happen. I think we burned our time up here. We started late and ended late. I'm right at about an hour on this, so when that are listening on the recording, I'll hit this on time. Because of how we set this up, that went over for everybody, and I appreciate you hanging on. Spence, if you can unmute, if there are any questions, I'll take that, but otherwise, people are welcome to email and send questions and information if there's anything else. Any ads that you have, Spence?
No, I thought you covered it well. I think this concept of our old basketball pictures of Magic and Stockton, you know, the concept of the great point guards are known for having this sixth sense, just kind of a court awareness. They know what's going on all around them, and sometimes they make some amazing assists and passes and even shots that no one ever anticipated, because they just have such a sixth sense about what's happening. And my urge to everyone would be simply to become that way in our businesses. Everything that you see, from the daily news to community happenings, can be related in some way to the audiences that you're after. And if you're aware of that and sensitive to it, I think you can see from some of the creative things that Brent has done, you can do that too if you're tuned into it and you're always thinking about the needs of your targets. So I think that's the essence of today's message.
And I
fantastic.
Go ahead, Brett. Pick on that. I'm going to go. You know, this expertise slide. Most PR comes as a result of truly having expertise in a field. Pick an area to focus your expertise, and what I'm going to say is you'll get that sixth sense. It'll come about because those opportunities, you'll find them and they'll find you when you have that expertise. I didn't have to market that thing to go into the claims manager's thing. They knew who to come to. And so they made the phone call, and we made that happen. And I've given you several examples today where essentially I put something in, I was asked to write the article for the magazine. I didn't solicit that. They solicited me. You develop the expertise and put it out there, and the opportunities for PR and free PR and to do that are there for you. If you think that PR is free, the cost of PR is expertise. If you think that it's free in absence of having that expertise, there's a mistake, and that's where it's in. So, all right, Spence, appreciate it.
Good. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.
We'll have the WebEx thing right now.